Students. A great student, when he hears of the Tao, earnestly practices it. A good student, when he hears of the Tao, sometimes follows it and sometimes loses it. A typical student, when he hears of the Tao, ridicules it. Were it not easily ridiculed, it would not be the true Tao. Those most illuminated by the Tao are often the dimmest. Those most advanced in the Tao are often the furthest behind. Those best guided by the Tao are the least self-assured. Those high in virtue resemble lowly valleys. The innocent are more likely to be shamed. The best craftsmen can seem inefficient. The most generous are indistinguishable from the poor. The greatest square has no corners. The greatest vessel is never filled. The greatest sound has no speech. The greatest form has no shape. The Tao is obscured and without name, and yet it is precisely this Tao that alone can fulfill and complete. That was chapter 41 of the Tao Te Ching, and it's a particularly long one. I'll also mention here that this chapter is officially more than halfway through the 81 chapters that we have to go through in this. And I think it is a good reminder halfway through to remember the role that each of us are constantly playing in a world in which change is a constant, and that is students. We're learning, we're changing, we're adapting, we're able to take on new things. So often, being a student or growing generally, I mean, that's what a student is. They're someone who is growing in knowledge intentionally. And actually, really, even unintentionally, I guess, in many ways, we students absorb knowledge as we all do, as we are all students throughout our life. We continue to grow, we continue to change, we continue to accumulate new knowledge, even as we use it in so many cases to reaffirm the information that we had before. And I think that's a good jumping off point here, he said cavalierly at 2 minutes and 15 seconds in, to talk about what it means to be a good student generally. And I think when we see the Tao here, we're talking about the Tao. It's not just about being a student of the Tao. It's about being a student of life and having the opportunity to do so. I think in so many ways, I've obviously spoken many times throughout this process of about the opportunity and the purpose of a governance structure being not to limit ways of learning, ways of achieving new knowledge, ways of improving one's life. It's one of the reasons I'm an advocate for capitalism, is that it is entirely consent-based. If it isn't consensual, it isn't capitalism. Now, does that actually line up with what we're seeing here? Those most illuminated are often the dimmest. Those most advanced are often the furthest behind. This reminds me most clearly of whether it's Shunryu Suzuki or some of these other great Buddhist teachers who talk specifically about the idea of having the mind of a child, and that being one of the most effective way to learn things that are most valuable. The way to not just identify them, but actually to pursue them as well, is to do it with this idea of childlike wonder that opens up the mind to achieve new things. That's what a child, when they come across something, it's more likely to be new, and because they are newer to the world. However, as adults, we are also encountering new things all the time. And whether or not they are new in that they are entirely novel is besides the point. They're new in that this is the first moment in time that they have occurred in this particular way, whether it's an expression of love, even something physical, a meal, a sofa, a car, these things that are existing throughout time, they change. The sentence that most stands out to me here is that the best craftsman can seem inefficient. And that's because the creation of something of high value is not necessarily mass-produced. There is a relationship between scarcity and value that is especially interesting to think about, both in terms of lived experience and the expression of capitalism versus how it is often portrayed.